Back in the 80s and 90s, whenever I saw a Volvo, it was either a 240 GL with an old guy wearing a tweed jacket and leather elbow patches, or it was a 265 GLE with an old guy going to his weekend cottage. Now, the common theme here was that it's, usually an old guy in a Volvo. Well, today, Volvo still targets a certain demographic with the EX90 and the EX40, but they say, and they've told me, that they're targeting a younger generation with the EX30. The question is, are they going to hit the millennial spot, or are they going to go boomer? My name is Andre Lawrence, and this is Evolution.
I've been walking around, waiting for you to shine. People passing me by. Does it feel like I belong?
I wanted to thank Volvo Canada for lending us this EX30 Ultra twin motor extended range for the week so that we can make this video. And this video is going to be a bit of a different format than what you've usually seen on this channel. David and I are just having a little bit of fun, so take these critiques with a little grain of salt. And before we get to the nitty-gritty of the video, here are the tech specs to get this out of the way right up front so that you know this is the top trim of the Volvo EX30, and here are all the details with regards to the battery size and range, etc. Like with every other car, the EX30 has a lot of good things, but also some less good things. The question is, do you want the good news or the bad news first? Well, that's rhetorical because you're getting the bad news, but stick around because there's a lot of good stuff, and that's coming up right after. You might be wondering why I've got this giant notepad here with all of the things that I wrote on 6 pages of legal-sized paper for this video, and that's because I'm trying to show you something that it's really interesting because it has to do with the fact that this car doesn't have the unlock buttons on the back doors like the Polestar 2 does, and I thought that was something that was a shame. But I also wanted to show you that, well, the passenger side front door doesn't have an unlock touch button, and that was also a bit of a shame. But then I wanted to show you the fact that this little key fob doesn't have any buttons, so I wouldn't be able to unlock the doors. And then that brought up, for the first time that I've driven this car this week, a problem. And of course it's while we're making this video, and I'm guessing it's some sort of software glitch, the car's not locking. I have to lock the doors to show you the fact that I can't unlock the doors with the key fob and other things that I've got written on this notepad. But let's go for a little walk. Let's walk away from the car for like 30-ish meters because there's no reason that the car shouldn't lock itself when you walk far enough away and those headlights are still lit and those mirrors are still folded and anybody can just jump into that car and take anything that I've left in it. And this is half an hour of my life wasted, half an hour of David's life wasted because the car doesn't want to lock. It's staying on. So all this really cool stuff that I wanted to talk about the, door locks not having touch buttons, and there's a little bit of a weird thing that usually happens that I can do on a recurring basis. Well, I can't do any of that because there's a new bug. The car won't turn off. Next segment, please. It's 2025, and most manufacturers today have switched over or are switching over to the North American Charging Standard, or the NACS charging port. The EX30 has a CCS combo port, and the problem is I don't have a date, or I couldn't find a date, for when they're going to be switching over to NACS. So for now, CCS combo. And to top it all off, this $60-ish thousand EV doesn't have a 50-cent LED to light up the charge port. So late at night, you're gonna be playing the guessing game. I don't get it. Now, I know you know this is a part of the video where I talk about the bad things, and you're probably wondering what could be bad about the trunk. Well, let's say for the sake of this exercise that I've got 50 pounds of boxes in my arms, and I'm holding the key fob in this hand, and I walk up to the car, and I try and do the kick foot thing. The trunk doesn't open because it doesn't have that little kick trick thing to open it. And of course, because this wonderful key fob has absolutely no buttons on it, I can't open the trunk with that either. Well, let's say for the sake of argument that you manage to hold these boxes and the key fob and reach over and tilt and press the little button on the back and open the motorized trunk lid, and then you put your boxes down on the edge. Well, the trunk doesn't have little release levers, so I can't fold my seats flat that way. That means that I need to press the buttons on the top of the back seats, but I can't get at them, or I can sort of contort to get around to them, but that's not super convenient. I just wish all manufacturers would put levers in the back of their trunks with a hatchback because it just makes life so much more easier and it's not that more expensive to do. And oh, by the way, there's no ski pass-through. I just remembered that bug that prevents me from showing you some other stuff with this car for the key fob and the car's not turning off. It just reminded me that I wanted to show you that the auto lock feature, when you walk away from the car, has a pretty loud and a sound that can startle late at night. And well, there's a way to turn it off, but I can't show that to you either, so oh well. Oh my God, breaking news. You know that scene that I wanted to show you before that I couldn't show you because the car wouldn't power off or turn off or lock or anything? Well, guess what? It's magic. It turned off while I was sitting right beside the front of the car. I have no idea why. There's something in this parking garage, but anyways, now I can show you what's wrong with this key and this door. I'm standing beside the car right now, and it doesn't unlock, and because there's no button on it, I can't unlock it from here. I need to walk over on the other side. Now you might be saying to yourself, that's because there's something weird going on in this garage and that's what caused all the problems before. Nope, this happened at my house, outside, in the middle of a field. So I walked out of my house, walked up to the side of the car, and this happened. And then another time, I'll walk up to it on a bit of an angle from over there in a parking lot, and it'll detect me from 5 meters away and boop, it'll come to life. I don't get it. I don't know. There's something weird going on with this car, especially in this parking garage, but at least you got to see that. And the fact that there's no unlock button here, and there's no unlock button here, I gotta walk around all the way on the other side of the car to, let's go walk around to the other side of the car. Let's see if it unlocks. Oh, by the way, millennials don't like walking, do they? Because we have to do a lot of walking to unlock their car. Now I am beside the front door and we're going to give the car the benefit of the doubt because it's in this underground garage that seems to be playing havoc on multiple things. I really hope I can get back in to go home. Uh-oh. Houston, we have a problem. There's a frequency in this underground garage that's causing this car to misbehave. I can't get in. I don't know how I'm gonna get home, but don't park your EX30 in an underground garage because you might not be able to lock it or get in. Good Lord. Okay, I'm learning something new every 3 seconds here because, like you just saw, I couldn't get into the car or unlock it. And then I looked at the little NFC pad that's right over here and I thought, well, that's only for the key card, right? Well, nope. You can use the key fob as an NFC card, and now I can go home. Now, because there's an NFC card reader on the other side, and I thought, well, maybe they put one on this side since there's no unlock button on the thing, but there's no NFC reader on this side either. So that means that you really need to be on the driver's side to unlock this car. I don't know. And because of all this key fob and wireless problem madness that's been going on and I didn't get to show you something, one thing I wanted to show you is when you do walk away from the car and it doesn't detect the key fob and then it locks, like it's supposed to, it makes a really loud sound. And it's not doing it again. Although before, like 3 minutes ago, it locked when I was standing right beside it and my ear was right beside the headlight and it made me go almost deaf. I guess we're not gonna show it to you again. I give up. Because this is a smaller EV, getting into the EX30 is a little bit of a tight fit, but once you're in, it's okay. However, I did knock my knee on this part of the dash a few times getting into the car this week, so it's something to consider when you get in, just to watch out for that. Another thing that's a little bit strange in this car is the steering wheel doesn't go down any more than this. It's set all the way down. And if they're targeting a younger audience and they sit in the gangsta position, all the way down, and then the airbag is, gonna explode in my nose. It's literally pointing at my face. And then you can always drive like this. Now I'm driving a bus. While I'm on the subject of the seating position, the memory seat is something that's in the touchscreen because, well, I'll get to that subject of no buttons later. But if I want to reset this seat to the normal position, I have to move the seat slightly, get a coffee and wait. Now I can press the restore button. I wish there was just a button right here that I could press. Why not add just a couple buttons, Volvo? Please. Staying on the subject of these seats, this is the Ultra trim. It's $67,000, and yet these seats aren't ventilated. Kind of disappointing. Sometimes when I'm driving my car and the sun is low in the sky, depending on the time of year, I reach over to the sun visor and I unclip it, and I would extend it, but these don't extend. And while I'm on the subject of the sun visor, there's no light for the sun visor. How are all the little pretty millennial girls going to do their makeup when driving at highway speeds? Imagine when my granddaughter comes and picks me up in EX30 and I need to grab the handle to get in the car and break my hip because there's nothing to grab onto. Anywhere in this car, there are no grab handles. Oh well. The EX30 has a standard overhead console with all of the regular buttons that you would expect, but they're not buttons, they're capacitive, like a bunch of other things that are in here, which I don't understand. And not only that, it's a gloss black overhead console. I guess Volvo loves fingerprints and scratches. When that 20-something-year-old goes to pick up his friends with his EX30, they're gonna find it a bit of a tight fit getting back here. Now I'm barely 5'8", and my legs are pretty much up against the back of this front seat, which is pushed to a position that's about right for a normal-sized person. Not only that, my legs are quite jacked up because of the way this is designed, so not really for 6-footers. When that 20-something-year-old is driving his friends around in his EX30, they're gonna be sitting back here, and some of them might be wondering, what's this thing up here where a coat hook should be? Well, when they ask that 20-something-year-old what it is, he'll say, well, it's a thing that you have to get an optional adapter for. You have to pay for it, even in the Ultra trim. That means that if he wants to hang his coat, he'll be having to skip his $15 Latte Grande for a couple weeks to be able to afford it. Younger generations today are slaves to their cell phones, and they're always swiping for hours on end. Well, the Volvo EX30 is going to make them super happy because there are no buttons in here. It's all touchscreen. Well, I kind of lied. There are a few buttons that are back here. You've got 2 on the back of this console right here for the back passengers for their rear windows. But as a driver, you also only get 2 that are on the center console right here. If you want to put the rear windows down as a driver, you've got to mess with this capacitive toggle button that's kind of hard to hit when you're driving. So when you're driving your car, I suggest you turn on ProPilot so that you can hit this button because you know. And on the subject of these capacitive buttons, the lock and unlock buttons are capacitive, and it's all on gloss black trim. I've got a hard enough time getting my 19-year-old to clean his room. There's no way he's going to be polishing this gloss black trim to make it look all nice. Keeping on the gloss black capacitive button subject, all the buttons on the steering wheel, they're sort of real buttons, but they're also capacitive. Now, even if you were to press on this button right at the upper edge here, you can hear that clicking, but it won't do anything unless you're pressing right in the capacitive area in the middle. Ask me how I know this. While I was playing with the cruise control, pressing on the upper edge didn't increase the speed, so I hate capacitive buttons. Getting back to the subject of the touchscreen, this car is definitely not for the non-technical because everything, including climate and lights and glove box and trunk opening, it's all on the screen. Some of them are pretty well placed, but there's a lot of stuff that you have to dig into to get to. So somebody like my wife, who's way more analog than digital, wouldn't want to own this car just for that fact. When I'm driving a car, I like an unobstructed view, and the EX30 has a touchscreen that's a little bit too high to my liking. I prefer the touchscreen to be more integrated into the dash. But I know why they did that. They did it because the speedometer is in the top left portion of that screen, and it's when you're driving okay to see, but that's there because of the biggest thing that I don't like about this car. There's no instrument cluster, which I could live without if it had heads-up display. The Ultra trim doesn't have heads-up display. Volvo's all about safety. You would think they would want you to keep your eyes on the road, not on the touchscreen. I love Android built-in or Google built-in or Android Automotive or whatever you want to call it because I'm an Android person. But the programming of this thing has its, let's say, quirks. Right now I'm parked not too far from the car in front of me, and that notification that's right on that screen right here, how do I access anything else behind it when this is on the screen? I have to move the vehicle away from the obstacle. So if I park behind somebody in the street and I want to turn the climate off, or set it to manual, I can't even get to the edge. That means I need to back up the car. Now I can turn off the climate. What the hell? The EX30 in the Ultra trim comes with a Harmon Kardon sound system with a subwoofer, but they don't have speakers in these front doors. They've got them in a sound bar that's on this dash over here. For a little bit of balancing, they've got speakers in the back doors in this Ultra trim with the Harmon Kardon sound system. It's okay, but I was a little bit disappointed with the sound quality. Comparing it to other vehicles, especially in this price range, I think it's a little bit lacking, but I could live with it. It's fine-ish. But the biggest problem I have is they have a dedicated speaker for the Android built-in or Google Automotive, whatever you want to call it. And the first time my navigation gave me directions, I had this nostalgic throwback to the 90s where you had these little speakers that were really crappy sounding. It would have been nice for the Google sound to come out of the Harmon Kardon sound to actually sound like good sound. So, a little bit of a letdown. Well, continuing in the theme of driving this car and testing it and making this video and trying to show you things, Dave and I just wasted the last 15 minutes of our lives because this Keyfob is, while it's dying, this car has 9,000-ish, 10,000-ish kilometers on it. And after we set all the cameras up and all the audio equipment sat in the car, and I tried to put the car into drive, and nope. It was saying no key detected. So I figured, not a problem, I'll just take this inside and throw in a CR2032 battery like every other Keyfob that exists on the planet, and away we go. But nope. I opened this up, and it's got a jumbo CR2450 hour 30. I don't know what it is. Anyways, it's a giant battery. It's not standard. So 10,000 kilometers, dead Keyfob, you better stock up on some CR2450s because the only way I could get the car to start was to futz with putting this key on the QI charger, and then, I was able to start the car. So, not so great. While driving this car for the last week, I've had something recur a few times that was a little bit annoying, and let's just say that today, it's been the most annoying. Once we got over that Keyfob issue and the car was actually able to start, I got a phone call from my wife, and my phone wasn't paired. And I couldn't take the call until I pulled over and answered the call. So I went into the settings and I got to the Bluetooth part, and my phone is there and it said that it's connected, but it wouldn't work. I tapped on it gently a 10th time and my phone connected. And that's when I made my phone call with my wife. So I don't know, there's something weird going on. It's not like I've got some strange, off the weird shelves kind of cell phone. I've got a Samsung Galaxy Fold 5. So it's not definitely the newest one, but it's not the oldest phone that's on the market, and it's a Samsung yet. So you would think it would just work. A lot of young people today walk around with headphones on and pretty much don't listen to anything except for their cell phones. But I'm guessing that just like here, it's illegal to drive a car with your headphones on, and they're going to have to drive this car and listen to what they can't hear or can hear. And in this particular car, it's a creaking noise coming from both front doors. I'm not 100% sure if that's because this is a press car, so big asterisk on the screen here because it's got, you know, some beaten miles on it because it's a press car. If you have creaking noises in your EX30, put them in the comment section below and let us know. The EX30 has a steering wheel feel that's a little bit too light to my liking, and that's even in the firm setting like I have set right now. It does tighten up a little bit at higher speeds, but it's still a little bit too disconnected from the road as well. That's okay though, because even though our education system the last 20 or 30 years has created a bunch of spaghetti-armed web surfers, they won't have problems steering the EX30. There's a programmable button on the EX30 steering wheel, which is fantastic and allows you to choose either one pedal driving on and off, or you can use it to swap something that's on the display. Now that swapping display at the top portion of the touchscreen isn't something that I would use, so I set it to one pedal driving because I use that on a daily basis. The problem is the fact that there's nothing anywhere to tell you that one pedal driving is on, except for one particular screen. But if I'm in navigation and I want to turn one pedal driving on and off, I'd like to be able to know if it's on or off without having to swap screens. So why, when there's a giant real estate screen that you don't put whether it's on or off? If you give a millennial a cell phone and some headphones and set them on their way, they can walk for kilometers and kilometers on end, although they might fall between two train cars or get hit by a bus because, well, they don't look or listen where they're going. So they might be a little disappointed when they get into the EX30 and they try and take a long road trip. I've had this car over the last week, and in the time that I've driven approximately 330 kilometers, even though I was doing mixed highway and mixed city driving, there was a lot of traffic, and my average speed was 38-ish kilometers per hour, I was getting 19.7 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, meaning that this is a 300 kilometer range vehicle, about 330, 350 if I'm careful, and driving at 40 kilometers per hour, really? That means that if I'm doing highway speeds at 110, 115 kilometers per hour, I can expect about 250 kilometers of driving range. That's not a very long road trip, and considering that this is a 65 kilowatt hour battery pack, usable, 69 nominal, that's not very good range. And that's not just my experience. If you look at some of the Facebook groups and some of the forums out there, there are people claiming that their range is between 250 and 300 when they take a road trip and drive at regular highway speeds. And this isn't clear weather. I'm not talking about 10 feet of snow here, so a little disappointing on the range point. I know this is a Volvo, and I'm going to get some people complaining that I'm going to make a comparison that shouldn't be made, but you'll get the idea of what I'm saying in a second. The base model single motor extended range battery of the EX30 is $8,000 more than a Hyundai Kona Electric Preferred. Now the Preferred has more equipment in it than a base model, and that's a vehicle that gives you 415 kilometers of claimed range, and Hyundai over-delivers on the range as opposed to, well, what I'm experiencing here with Volvo, where it's definitely under-delivering. Now, when I say that it's a comparison that it has to be made is because the vehicles are almost identical in terms of size. I'll have that up here on the screen for you to see. They offer similar tech, similar specs, batteries almost identical in size. The Hyundai's actually a little bit smaller. Enough about all the complaining and negativity. There are a lot of good things that come with this Volvo EX30 and a lot of really cool features. And some of the good things are the fact that Canada gets another option in the smallish EV market. Young people like the Avengers, right? Or am I just too old and they've moved on to something else and I have no idea what I'm talking about? Well, regardless, if they're targeting a younger audience at Volvo, well, one of the things that has them covered is the fact that you got Thor's hammer headlights. That's pretty cool. These are LED headlights, and though they're not matrix or motorized like the EX90, they do a good job of lighting up the road. Volvo didn't cheap out on something that's under the hood of this car like one manufacturer that I recently reviewed, and I'll have a link for that video up in the corner of this screen, and that's hood struts. So yep, spending a little bit more money getting this car, but it's got some really nice hood struts that raise the hood up all by itself. When millennials play racing games, they spec out their cars with these giant wheels, don't they? I don't know, I'm just making this crap up as I go, but hey, if they get a Volvo EX30, they can spec it out with 245/40 R20 20-inch wheels, That's pretty cool. There are some EV manufacturers that get their heat pumps from the turbojet noise ear bleed manufacturer in China. Well, not Volvo. Volvo gets them from the We Make Super Quiet Heat Pumps Hush and Shut Up heat pump company from China. That means that this has a really quiet heat pump that, well, you really can't hear. It's as good, if not better, and more quiet than some other EVs that I've tested with regards to heat pump noise, and that's fantastic. Remember earlier in the video when I was supposed to show you that really annoying lock noise that this car makes when you walk away from it? And I didn't get to show you because of all that insane madness that happened with the doors? Well, what I really wanted to get a part of that this good thing is you can actually turn that noise off. There's a little setting in the menu. It's actually one of the first things I did when I got this car, got home, and it startled me the first time I heard it. So that's a good point. Sometimes you just need to use the KISS rule, the keep it simple, stupid. Because if you've ever driven a Korean EV and you've been a victim of the, oops, I clipped that little electronic button that locks the child locks on the back doors, it also locks the rear windows, and you can't separate the two. It's kind of silly, and it's an electronic thing that could fail. Well, keeping it simple, Volvo has these manual child locks like in the good old days. All you do is stick in a little thing and twist it, and your child locks are locked, but your rear windows still work. Nice. In keeping with the theme of keep it simple, stupid, this charge port is manual, very standard, and not needlessly motorized like some other manufacturers that are having problems in the winter with their charge ports that remain stuck open, and I won't say it, GM. That means that you won't have problems with this charge port. And not only that, it's on the side of the car as opposed to being in the back where it can get filthy, and worse, in the front, my pet peeve with electric cars, calling you Niro and Kona. It's horrible. This is a great idea. And not only that, unlike a Korean brand that I know very, very well, this is officially supported by Tesla superchargers. You can use the Volvo adapter and the Volvo Cars app to charge on a supercharger, and away you go. When a young person buys a cell phone today, they're used to their phone not coming with a cell charger, regardless of the price they've paid. Well, imagine how happy they'll be when they see that their EX30 comes with a charger. Now, this isn't just a regular old 110 volt level 1 charger. You get this nice little 240 volt adapter. This is a 9.6 kilowatt AC level 2 charger as well. So another bonus feature in the EX30. And if you have to go on a long trip, this car will do you very well with regards to fast charging. On a DC fast charger, you can get up to 175 kilowatts of speed. It isn't blazing fast like some 800 volt architectures that are out there, but it's more than acceptable and plenty fast for daily needs. If you do take your EX30 on a road trip, there are a lot of cool little things in this trunk. Now, the trunk space was calculated below this cover and above this false floor, which means that it appears small, but it's actually bigger than you think. Now, you can fit a golf bag back here, and the Volvo Canada website actually has a little animation that when you click on certain items, it shows you that they fit in this trunk, which is pretty cool. Another little thing that's interesting is this nifty little dimensions thing that's back here, so that attention deficit millennial who does buy this EX30 won't remember the dimensions. They don't have to look it up on Google, they can just look in their trunk. This annoying hard tonneau cover that's back here that I mentioned early in the video is actually something that can be stored under this trunk. All you have to do is pull off this cable, take it out, lift the lid, and put it under. Once you've got that tonneau cover stored under the trunk, one of the nice things is when you fold these seats, they fold completely flat. Another little bonus in the trunk. If you need a little extra storage space in your trunk to hide your friend when you go to the movie theaters, don't do that, by the way. The 80s ended a long time ago and it's a bad idea. Well, you can take this and drop it one level lower, or you can remove it completely. A good thing on the inside of the EX30, even though this is a smallish vehicle, once you're actually seated and comfortable in these seats, there's quite a bit of room, and if you back the seat up, there's tons of leg room. The other nice thing about this, because of the panoramic glass roof, there's a lot of headroom, as you can see here, so 6-footers, not going to be a problem. Another nice detail about this glass roof that's different than in other vehicles that I've tested that do have panoramic roofs as well, is the trim that's on the side. It doesn't come in as much as in some other vehicles. That means that when I'm seated here, I don't feel like I'm crouching because of the trim and the airbags and all the stuff that's in there. So that's a really great point in this vehicle. The inside of the EX30 has a lot of soft touch materials in all the right places and some material inserts in the door panels for actually all 4 doors, some soft padding in all the right places, and not tons of scratch plastic. But the scratchy plastic that you do get over here is actually some sort of recycled material, and there are a couple motifs or choices of finish that you can get. I prefer this one to the one that has the little plastic flakes in it, but it's quite nice and feels upscale, so nice interior. And I really like these metal door handles. They're well positioned, they feel good, and they feel solid. Very nice touch. One day, several years ago, all auto manufacturers got together and asked themselves this one question: how do we get younger people to buy our cars? Well, their answer to that seems to have been ambient lighting and soothing sounds. Well, the Volvo EX30 has you covered because it's got illumination themes. And that means that millennial girls can take selfies with pretty lights in their EX30. The lack of buttons in the EX30 might be a downer for some, but Volvo actually thought of one button that was important, and that's up in the overhead console, and that's the quick on-off for front and rear defrost. So when you get into your car, you don't have to fiddle with the touchscreen or wait for the car to boot up. You can just press that capacitive button, front and rear defrost turns on, so nice for the winter. Another nice little feature of this overhead console is the fact that these reading lights, and that's the same thing for the back ones, is that if you press and hold this, it'll actually dim the light or make it brighter, so another nice feature. Remember this weird opening that I mentioned earlier? Well, if you're a glass half full kind of person, then having more options is a good thing. As opposed to being stuck with just a coat hanger, it can be multifunction, so nice job. The lower portion of the center console has a wireless charging pad, which is really convenient, as well as a slot for a second phone. And underneath these little storage flaps, you've got some more storage and 2 USB ports, which is excellent. Then you've got this little cup holder slidey thingy that you can push out, and it gives you not only the spot for 1 or 2 cups, but you can also set it to be in a position for only 1 to give you more room to hear. In the back seat of the EX30, you also get this removable tray thingy. I don't know why, but hey, you get a removable tray thingy. Even though the touchscreen settings take a little bit of getting used to, Google built-in is an awesome interface. If you're an Android user like me, and you sign into your Google account, you never have to take your cell phone out of your pocket. Now, if you're an iPhone owner, I feel sorry for you, but at least you get wireless CarPlay. I'm kidding about the pity thing. Am I?
Andre, the video is on the internet, so tell them you're kidding.
I'm kidding. Driving the EX30 on the highway is something that shows that it's very quiet. Now, I've got winter tires on 20-inch wheels on this Ultra twin motor version, and even though I can hear those winter tires, the overall cabin noise is actually quite low, and that's considering that this thing has a glass panoramic roof with no sunshade. So that is definitely a big plus. The overall insulation around the side windows and everything is actually quite good. Different manufacturers make steering wheels in different shapes and sizes, and the EX30 has one that I like, and that's the squircle, or the square circle. The nice flat top gives you better visibility out the front, nice flat bottom, doesn't hit you in the legs when you're driving, and it makes it very comfortable to drive, in my opinion. Another thing that I like on the steering wheel is that one pedal driving button that you can program. It's really convenient for the fact that when you want to get on the highway and you don't want to have to constantly fight with that one pedal driving, you just press it, turn it off, it's off, and away you go. The steering's lock-to-lock count is also quite low as compared to other EVs that I've driven, which brings up another subject that's interesting about this, is that the turning radius on this vehicle is an excellent 10.7 meters. And let me show you, this thing turns on a dime. Take a look at this video. All right, I'm just kidding. Here's the real footage. Continuing on the subject of the steering wheel, the input and precision is fantastic. In other words, it doesn't take very much input on the steering to get the wheels where you want them to point, and that gives a nice and sporty drive. When you pair that steering wheel with some good suspension, you get great handling, but you don't compromise on comfort, which makes for a great car to drive on a longer trip because you can have some fun in the curves, but you won't have a sore butt. When you get the EX30 on the highway and you do go on a longer trip and you set the pilot assist adaptive cruise control, it does a pretty good job of staying between the lines and following the curves like it's doing right now, even though my hands are off the wheel for a second. It does tell you that your hands are off the wheel after a shorter amount of time, so don't do that, it's illegal. But you can't talk about EVs without talking about acceleration. that's one point that the EX30, at least the twin motor version, does very well. Actually a surprising 3.6 seconds to 60. Now that's way faster than some of the other cars that I've driven, barring the Tesla Plaid, which basically ripped out my chest when I accelerated with it. But that brings up a point. The nice thing about the EX30 is that 3.6 seconds isn't going to break your passenger's neck because, well, it's well mapped. In other words, there's a slight ramp at the very beginning, so you get that full push, but it doesn't snap your head back that first second you press the pedal down. So, well done. Nice acceleration mapping. This thing is a lot of fun to drive. So in the end, does the Volvo EX30 hit that younger generation target? Well, if you consider the fun driving dynamics, the cool interior, and the overall package, then I'd have to say yes. However, if you consider that the base model is 57,000 Canadian, or just over, I don't know about where you live, but where I live, not many young people can afford a car at that price, and that doesn't even consider the insurance that they would have to pay for it. Well, with that being said, if you can afford this car and you're looking for something fun to drive that's a little bit smaller and is pretty cool, well, the EX30 is something to consider if you can live with the, let's say, not so great range and the lack of rear passenger room. So if you're looking for a small EV, I suggest you go take this one for a test drive and see if it suits your needs. Just make sure you take it into an underground garage and see if you can get back into it after you get back out. I'm kidding, but kind of not. If you like the content that we make and you like this video, then there are a couple things that you could do that could help David and I out. First thing is if you could share this video in places that you think it might help other people and help answer their questions and where it's pertinent, then please do that. It's something that we would appreciate because those people might subscribe to this channel. And speaking of that subscribe button, if you could click that subscribe if you haven't already and hit that notification bell because we have absolutely no posting schedule, that helps manufacturers look at our channel with a little bit more, I guess, credibility. It's not a number that really means anything, but when they see a number that's higher on a channel, it makes them want to lend us their cars. Companies like Audi, Mercedes, Rivian, and Porsche, well, we haven't reviewed those cars yet, and they're not companies that we have access to, although we have pretty much every other manufacturer in Canada. So please click on that subscribe button. It makes us happy. And if you click on that like button to tell us that you did like this video, that makes David happy because he puts in hours and hours editing all the stuff that I do and the thousands of mistakes that are in the bloopers. Speaking of those bloopers, they're at the end of every video, so you might want to stick around and laugh at my silly face doing stupid things. We'd like to take the time to also thank you for taking your time to watch this video. Like with every other car, the EX30 has some... Like with every other car, the EX30 has a lot of good stuff and bad stuff. But enough about all the negativity. There's a lot of good things about this car. Enough about all that complaining. I'm really tired. I woke up at 3 a.m. Yay! Well, guess how happy they're gonna be. Even though the then having more options is a good thing. So the fact that the dicks can be more than coat hangers? The fuck was that?